yo, it's Guido coming at you with a tactics talk and a tank review for the Italian Tier 9 Prototipo Standard B. Probably said that wrong, but it's the Tier 9 Italian tank with the autoloader. I just finished grinding that, so we'll knock out a review on this thing. We'll go over an overview, we'll talk about tech tree considerations, take a look at the model on tanks.gg. They finally have the Italian tanks in there. We'll do comparison with some of its stable mates at Tier 9 medium tank hood. Look at the setup that I had. I'll take a look at my stats after the grind, and then we've got at least 3 examples of gameplay for the Standard B Italian Tier 9 medium tank. So let's get started. We'll hit the overview first. You can see it here in the garage. It looks a lot like a Leopard. Here's the Leopard prototype. So it was built under the same program, at least initially, as the Europanzer eventually became the Leopard. So there was a conglomerate that was looking at building these things. One of the prototypes was the Standard B with the autoloader and the requisite wargaming adding fantasy elements to it. But at least it was more or less on a drawing board at some point. You can see that it is relatively low, smaller than a Centurion, bigger than the Batchat, a lot smaller obviously than the E50, which is a very big tank. So a decently low silhouette, but it's not T54 size, although the general height is the same, but it's got more billboard siding on it than the T54. Taking a look there. One thing to recognize is the depression over the back deck is bad as it is on the Leopard prototype. So they both share the same issue with that raised back deck. Looking backwards, you're not going to get the depression. That can cause you problems when you're running away. It is angled armor, but there's not much of it. We'll talk about that in a minute. It is not highly angled other than maybe the lower plate, but the armor overall is a very thin tank. Note that there are 4 crew members in this, and we'll talk about that when we get to the tech tree considerations for that. That is basically it on the overview. Nothing else really to note. You can see the tracks are well exposed right there. They're not very wide, and it's lightly armored, like I said. So let's move on to the tech tree portion. Diving into the tech tree, as I've noted before, the transition from the P2640 to the P43 changes the configuration of the crew, and then the crew configuration all the way to the Tier 10 will be exactly the same. We'll take a look at it for the Standard B. It is a commander, gunner, driver, and loader. So once you reconfigure your crew, moving from the Tier 4 to the Tier 5, it'll be the same crew configuration if you are moving your crew along. We'll talk about how far I got on my crew with this entire grind when we get to it right there. So there's really nothing else to talk about in the tech tree other than to take a quick look at. It's a pretty easy upgrade overall. You can see that the tracks, the engine, and the radio only have one upgrade. There is an upgraded turret and an upgraded gun, which is going to change your capabilities on the gun. This is a 212 pen autoloader, and then you get to the Tier 10 and you're talking 268. So that's a considerable upgrade for the gun with a 360 average damage. Over here on the Tier 9 one is a 240 average damage. So that does change. The interesting thing about this, and I talk about it a little bit in the game examples because I'm going to show you an example with the stock gun, is that the reload times between those two are a lot different. So the stock gun, obviously at a 240 alpha, is going to shoot much faster, and a total reload takes a lot shorter time than the 360 alpha gun, and you'll have been using that 240 alpha with roughly the same reload for the Tier 8 and the initial part of your Tier 9, and that can trick you a little bit when you move up to the Tier 10 based on there's a much longer time between reloads. So you're going to have to work on your timing when you change those two guns out. I would not recommend staying with the lower gun just for the shorter reload time. Really, the 360 helps this thing shine, and that's the gun you really should be running in your Standard B right there. I won't get into this too deeply, but it is possible to load up most of this, get the turret and the gun without worrying about the tracks on this, as I recall. I just wanted to confirm with you here, just so you know, because I've put vert stab, gun rammer, and vents on this thing. This is in the comparison tool where you can tell which modules you can use. You'll notice I've got the stock tracks and I've got everything loaded plus the equipment, so you can run this tank without the upgraded tracks, no problem. I would recommend getting the gun and the turret and then worry about the rest of it. The engine is important, but I think these two are the most important, the gun and the turret, to begin with right there. And I'm going to set this thing back up to fully upgraded. and we'll move on to the model. Here's the model for the standard B, and you can tell right away that it just doesn't have any armor. You just look at it, 67 effective, 98, 31 up there. The turret is not much, almost doesn't really matter what angle you give them, unless you get to some kind of auto bounce angle that's not overmatched, which could happen easily based on how thin some of this is, especially with the higher caliber guns. Even the Matlin's not amazing. It's at 270. You look at straight on, 307, but there are some big TD guns, obviously around tier 9 and 10, that will punch through that. Maybe even some heavy tank guns that get a good roll based on what it is and whether they're shooting their heat or their APCR, gold rounds, premium rounds, whatever you want to call it. So essentially, I wouldn't even say you'll get the occasional troll bounce. The only time I really felt like I got a troll bounce is maybe some weird angle, someone and they hit my mantlet, to be quite honest. Any other time, it just, other than it's some kind of strange auto bounce from a lower caliber tank gun, you're just, this thing just isn't going to bounce anything. And that is a bit of a limitation with the style of tank it is with really good depression, we'll talk about in a minute, that its turret is so terrible. And it shares that same problem with the Leopard PTA and the Leopard 1. The meta has armored most people's turrets. Even the AMX-30B and AMX-30 have pretty good armored turrets now, but these guys have been left behind. The Leopards and this variant of the Leopard are getting no love on the turret side. That's basically all there is to say about that. It has no armor, and you are going to struggle to bounce anything. Let's dive into the comparison tool. You can see I've got the standard B on the left. Some of the autoloaders, although it's not exactly an autoloader, the Skoda, the Batchat, and the T-54, and then some of the basic tanks from the tech tree, E-50, T-54, Cent WZ, and the Leopard PTA. Taking a look at it, it's apples to oranges to a large extent. It is neither a standard reloading tank, nor is it really an autoloader in the traditional sense of the T-50, Batchat, and T-54. Remember that it can shoot a round before the entire clip is reloaded, so you can fight it as a standard tank. Remember that if you're going to do that, it is better if you can, if you're going to do one shot, reverse, wait, one shot, reverse, wait for a reload, to do that with 3 shells in the clip instead of shooting all 3 and then doing that with the first shell in the clip. Why? Because it's a 14-second reload for the first one and it's an 11-second, 3 seconds less for the second one. Remember that in my comparison here that I take off all equipment, I take off all skills, and I give you 100% crew to look at this. So it's going to be less, obviously, more than likely than 14, especially with a gun rammer, which, by the way, does work on the Italian tank autoloaders and does not on the other kinds of autoloaders. So you can see there it's really is an apples to oranges kind of thing. Let's look at some of the things that are comparable across the board. It has a fantastic penetration with the standard round. You see top of class right up there with the Centurion 7.1 and the Leopard PTA. So that is very good. Average damage is at 360. It's near the top of the class. It's not that nice 390 or even 440 in the case of the WZ, but it's near the top, so not bad at all for an autoloader. Turret traverse is good. Depression and elevation is really nice. -10, so tied for top on that and tied for top on elevation as far as depression and elevation goes, although that's with 2 different tanks. For the load time, that's interesting. Again, the apples to oranges thing matters here. It's 37 seconds total to get all of them loaded, and there's 3 shells in the clip. Magazine, whatever you want to call it. I'll just keep calling it clip for ease sake. The Skoda is 21 seconds, really fast actually for an autoloader, and you get 3 shells. The Batchat is very long, but you get 6, and the 5041 is 34, a little less than the standard B, but you get 4. So it's all a balancing act in here as they tinker with these numbers, because remember that the standard B will be able to fire a shell much faster than a reloading Skoda, Batchat, or T-54. If he's forced to, he can kick out 1 right after reload, or even 2 before he gets to the full 3 reloaded. Aiming time is okay, not quite as fast as some of the more accurate tanks. Interestingly, the Leopard PTA is much better, and it's at 2.21. Dispersion is again okay, not best in class, but not terrible in there. And the DPM was an interesting number for me. It's at 2,000, not nearly as bad as the Batchat with its 6 shells and very long reload at 1,800. Remember that burst potential though from the Batchat's pretty amazing. The Skoda is higher and it reloads faster. I would say overall the Skoda is a much more flexible tank than even the Standard B. Even considering the fact that the Standard B in 14 seconds can shoot again once it has completely dumped its clip, the Skoda B doesn't wait much longer to get all three back. And it shows it with a 2300 DPM, which is near the top, not as good as a T54. So that was an interesting number. I think the Standard B suffers a little bit on that. The flexibility gained by the being able to kick out that one shell before all the rest of them are reloaded is important, but I don't think it really overcomes some of this tank's negatives. It's an okay tank, but I don't think that really overcomes it. And sitting at 2048 with the DPM is a good example of why it kind of suffers overall. It's down near the bottom. Hit points are 1700, near the top on that. Not bad. There's the armor. If you just look at that, it just really suffers. Okay, hull armor, yeah, no big deal. That it's a medium, although a lot of these mediums have pretty good hull armor. Reference the Centurion and the T54 and the E50 and even the T54E1, which can get troll bounces on the hull armor. But the turret armor is where it just really gets let down. Now the Bat Chat is terrible at 25, but it's got a lot of weird angles. Can't tell you how many times I've bounced off the weird turrets of the various AMXs and Bat Chats out there. But the rest of them are sitting pretty good. 54 at 240. The E50 has 185, even though it is flat plate, but it is 185. Even the 54E1's got really nice 127 and crazy angles on it. All the way over to the Centurion 7.1, which is godlike at 254. But here we sit with the Standard B at 60 and the PTA at 52, which is actually worse, oddly enough, than the Standard B. And as far as the meta goes in this game and how the game is played currently, that's a killer. That is an absolute, it's almost a deal breaker for the poor tank. It really has no capability to hold down, so it is purely a hide somewhere or ambush tank, or I hate using the word support tank, but be up front supporting, meaning I'm up front hiding behind the heavies, trying to jump out and use that clip potential and staying alive so that I'm then that ambush and cleanup guy at the end, which can be problematic at how thin it is. Already absolutely massacres these things, much like the Leopard PTA and the Leopard. All right, top speed, this is where it shines. It's fast, 65 and 23. It's on parity with the Leopard PTA, as fast as the Bat Chat, and the reverse speed's actually interesting. I hadn't noticed that, and I didn't really notice in the game whether that was an advantage or not, but I assume it probably is, because if you're going to poke out and take some shots, you want to get away as soon as possible. But you'll see that all these tanks have really good reverse speeds, right? 20 is the worst, and 23 is the best. A whole difference of 3 points right there, or 3 kilometers per hour. It does traverse nicely on its tracks, so in that sense, it's better than the Leopard PTA. It's more agile, and it is a quite agile and fast tank. Concealment, oddly, is, at least as the wargaming number goes, it's the best. It doesn't have top in class in anything and specifically, but all of them are actually pretty good. And I don't know, unknown why it's a stealthier tank than, say, the Leopard PTA. I don't know, other than perhaps balance considerations, there's no real reason why the Standard B, which is essentially the same tank as the Leopard A, would be different, but it is wargaming logic. View range is bottom of class at 390, although I suppose it's not as bad as the Bat Chat at 380. It's not great, though, at 390, which kind of surprised me. No idea why it would be worse than the German tank, unless, I guess, German optics are better, or I don't know. It was a group effort, right, in Europe, so you would think it would just be the same optics in both of them, but who knows. It's 390 in any event. All right, that's the comparison. What would I hang my hat on? It's a mobile tank. It has terrible armor, and the jury really is out on the reload mechanism. It is flexible, but it's hard to use, and we'll talk about that when we get both to my stats, which are pretty funny, and to the gameplay examples. So how did I set this tank up? Obviously, once I got all the top modules, and oh, by the way, I ground this tank from stock. So I had run out of free experience, so I ground every module on this tank from stock. I played it a while at stock. I already talked about the strategy for upgrading it where you don't need the tracks, which is what I did. I got the gun and the turret first, and then got the rest of them. In fact, I even unlocked the radio. You wouldn't necessarily have to do that if you wanted to get to the tier 10 faster. You don't need the radio, but I just unlock everything as a matter of course. So how did I set this up? I'm having a rammer on there. I have a rammer on there. Remember that the other autoloaders can't do that. This is a special case, so apples and oranges, like I said. Running the Vert Stab and the improved ventilation class 2. I don't think there's any better setup than that out there. Quite frankly, there's nothing else better in there. You wouldn't really want to run anything but those 3. APCR 48, I'm carrying 9 heat rounds and 3 HE rounds. Remember that the gun below this one is APCR, and this one's heat. So this will be the first time you run into a heat round in the Italian line, at least for a while. There may have been some earlier, but at least for a while in the mid tiers, 7, 8 or so. Be careful with heat. All the requisite warnings about if you hit highly angled armor or if you start shooting them into tracks, the side of tanks into tracks, things like that. Heat is problematic at times, but it's got a really nice penetration. If we take a look down here, it's 330. So 268 standard round, 330 with the heat round, pretty good. I am carrying a little more gold in this than I usually would. Usually it'd be 4 to 6 rounds, but I was in try-hard mode and attempting to grind through this thing. Carrying a small, and large fire extinguisher, or more importantly than that, the automatic fire extinguisher. So that is my basic setup. Let's take a look at my stats. So my efforts in this tank were interesting to me. 201 battles to unlock the tier 10 from stock, averaging 944 experience. And you'll note that I only have a 50% win rate in this thing. When I was running at stock, I was down often at 46, 47%, even after 40 or 50 battles, which is about where I probably took a little longer than that to get out of the stock, but somewhere around 50 battles to 100, I was dancing 45 to 48% and having a really hard time stringing together wins on this tank, and clearly that continued. I was barely able to get it to 50% even, just by one battle actually. You know, if it was, although there may be a draw in there, I don't know if there's a draw in there. I don't want to do that math, but in any event, 78% hit rate, which is pretty good. Victories survived is slightly low, but not bad at 33%. Damage ratio and destruction ratio are actually okay. Armor use efficiency, that's that thin tank. It just doesn't have any. And that's one of its problems. The staying power of this tank is very low. It's very difficult. You've got to be careful. It's easy to get taken out of games earlier than you want to, which means your effectiveness late game in order to influence wins becomes less because it's hard to stay alive and effective in this tank, and that's reflected to a large extent by my 50% win rate right there. I've average damage 2,367, which is actually not bad at tier 9. Now it's not super unicum numbers by any means, but it's not out of the ordinary. So if we take a quick look at this, we come up here maybe to the AMX 30, which also has 205 battles. A comparable experience, 944 and 956 for the AMX. If we look at the damage ratio of 161 and 2.16 destruction, we've got a 163 and 2.15, but I've got 6% more win rate on the AMX, and I found that very interesting. As a matter of fact, my average damage on the prototype, on the standard B, I'll spit it out in a minute, is actually more than a 56% win rate AMX 30 over there. So I found that to be quite interesting. 549 average assist, 503. So really very comparable numbers. Vehicle spotted 158, 154. We go up to the AMX 30, 149, 144. Just two tanks that I fought probably very similarly, but significantly different win rate. Now it'd be interesting to take both of them to 400 in the current meta and see where I get. I feel like I should be more like 54, 55% on this tank based on the stats that I've got. So there may just be some kind of RNG randomness in there, or there is something very basic that I'm doing wrong with the tank. And if I was going to make a guess and try to hang my hat on something, it would be early on especially a tendency to get out and exposed and expect the fact that I could reload a shell earlier and fight as a regular tank probably cost me multiple wins early on. And even towards the end, I started to get better at the end. I made a pretty good run at the end. My damage came up quite a bit. As a matter of fact, at about 150, my average damage per game was around 2,000, 1,900 to 2,000. So I in the last 50 games, I really did raise that up. Had a lot better games towards the end. Got a Radley Walters and some other things like that. So I may have actually finally had the light bulb come on stats, or at least how I'm fighting it, and then the stats improving, have the light bulb come on towards the end of this tank. So again, it might be interesting to take it another 100, 200 battles, see if I could raise it up to 55, 54%. I feel like I could, but it is an interesting consideration because as I look at the stats, I say, based on all the other tanks, and I'm not going to look at the rest, but the rest of my tier 9s are comparable, and they're all in the 53 to 59% win rate area. So that was kind of an interesting, I'll call it an anomaly. All right, I'm not saying it's not my fault. I'm saying it most likely is my fault, but it is an interesting thing because it's different than the rest. All right, let's jump into the games. I'll give you some examples and we'll wrap it up. First game example will be stock. So I'm running the gun from before. You can see it's got 3 rounds, 240 damage with 259 penetration, a liberal amount of gold based on it being the stock gun at tier 9. I'm here on top tier on one of my first battles. Anybody at 357 on the airfield. Like I said, spawned into the side, headed up to the hill right here. Decent speed, not great maneuverability with the stock engine and tracks. Unfortunately, my cursor left my window right there and made me stop. Otherwise, I would not have stopped there. That was not smart. Type 62 is working up here. I'm going to hide just so somebody doesn't time me coming out right here. If I'd have just gone straight for that bush, somebody over there may have shot. Now I'm going to get out of the way because the type's shooting, so I'm unknown if he's been spotted. Now that he moves away, we'll see if we can find something to shoot at. Not much going on up here. E75 is kind of driving up the middle. That's kind of interesting. Franck, old Franck over there, is taking an interesting line. The road less traveled, but is not being punished for it right now, which is bizarre. See the Oni. The Oni is actually turning and not looking, so I'm going to sneak a shot into him and come right back because somebody else was just looking at me right there. Tiger 2 would like a piece of me. I get reloaded. Now, if you're going to use this as a single shot tank, it's best to do it while you're reloaded with your 3 rounds, so that when you shoot and pull back, the reload is faster. If you clip out and then reload the first round and continually shoot the first round, it's a longer reload. So you're just a less effective single shot tank. But if you have the opportunity to put the 3 rounds down range to clip out and you can get the damage, then do that, obviously, because that burst damage is pretty good. So it's a constant case of attempting to manage that, I guess. Do I want to stay with all 3 in all the time and fight as a standard tank? Do I have an opportunity to jump out and clip out on somebody and do the damage and then I have to hide? And then once I do that, what's the situation around me? Do I need to just keep firing that 1 round even though it's like a 10-second reload? It's a little less on this because it's the smaller gun. So all those things are going to be in your mind. In addition to that, if you play this stock and you just played the Pantera, look at this T29 getting behind me. It's a fairly fat, look at that, it doesn't even, just spins and hits me, no problem. We'll get to what I'm trying to talk about in a minute as I get blocked by the T29 and he helps me eat 504 damage because this guy is not paying attention to what he is doing. So I'm reloading now. So the discussion then, I was talking about, part of that is you're going to get used to how fast this smaller gun reloads, and it's a considerably longer time with the bigger gun, which I'll talk about in the next videos. I have an opportunity then to push on this guy, and there's that clip burst potential. Okay, that's something a regular tank that's not an autoloader doesn't have an opportunity to do. That required 2 shots to take him down. Now if I had a big alpha gun, yes, then a big heavy could do it, but a medium coming across there, I knew I could probably kill him in 2 shots, and I can then reposition to this spot and anchor the push on these guys from here. Now this is that, do I take that shot or do I sit there and reload the whole clip? Well, I'm going to put the pressure on them, right? The E75 is not really doing great. I've got them thinking about it now, and now they've turned around. So that's going to take some of the pressure off of the 29, or off of the E75, and now I can come around here. Nice shot into the T29, I guess from the 34 potentially back there, or the 29, or maybe it was already, but either way we double tap him. And now I'm just using that single shot capability with a relatively long reload. But again, this is the small gun, so that reload time is not too terrible on the first shell. When we get into that bigger gun, you'll notice that it's considerably different, and there may be some different calculus for you on whether you want to sit there and reload everything. Now this Tiger II is in bad shape because he's got enemies on multiple sides. I'll just take a better aimed shot into the top there. And he's not interested anymore in getting shots, so he's starting to poke up there. And it looks like he's shooting HE at the E75, so that's not really going to go very well for him. Right in the back of the turret. Kind of sitting there. I don't know if he gave up or what he was thinking there. Maybe he's just hoping to survive. The E75, and I ended up taking him down. 2,202. They're pushing pretty good down into the south there. It's unusual that that kind of push works, but they did take the T-95 and a couple of their heavier tanks down there. So I'll just reposition back up to our little perch and start to try to handle these guys on the other side. There we go. We'll just kill him off. He's done. Nope. We'll just crit him. And again, there's that clip burst potential. First one bounced. All right, no problem. I got another one. Progetto is back on their cap. The 8.8, what looks like the only TD that was sitting up on their TD perch. And there are a considerable amount of tanks left. We're at 8 to 10, but 2 of them are over there. The T-95 and the Centurion. There goes the Centurion. That was a useful kill. We've got 2 of our own TDs anchoring down there. A couple anchors anchoring. And now I'm just looking for, all right, how are we going to crack this nut? We got a guy near their cap. We got a TD somewhere around the middle. We have a very dangerous TD sitting at, what, C2, C3 area. I'm just going to take a peek there and see if I get lit. I don't know if anyone's got the view range in there. What I want to do is get over to their perch. But I need to make sure I'm not going to get murdered before I even get there. There's also an artillery I have to worry about. And their perch is not very protected from artillery coming from our side. Our charioteer is finally moving up, so that may be useful. That's actually a pretty good medium type TD. He's got a bit of a turret, fast tank, decent reload with a pretty good stick, and he ends up finding the Su-101 pretty quickly. So I'll just come around here and put a shot into him. Fortunately, the 8.8 missed, and I make a mistake there. That was a huge mistake. I should have accepted the 2 that I got in. To be quite honest, I was pretty lucky not to have already taken a hit. That third one allowed the 8.8 to reload, the 101 to reload, and then the Arty looking at me. So that was just not something I should have done. We know where he is. We could work on him, and I really took a lot of bad damage for that, which is going to just murderize my reload. And that's the kind of thing right there that I should have waited for. We had that handled. We knew exactly where he was. He was not a problem. I'm trying to find this guy. Maybe I can get a shot on him. Just gets away. And that probably, the fact that I didn't get a shot in there has a lot to do with the fact that I poked one too many times there and had to wait for the reload so long and had to mess around with the stun and everything else. I wasn't able to effectively reposition and look around. So now that I'm wounded like this, I'm actually going to move forward. Another mistake, boom. So I get hit doing that. Additionally, I'm not paying attention to my clip. Look at that. I only have 2 rounds in it instead of 3. So really kind of end game mismanaging the heck out of it. Another shot by the 8.8. Charioteer's trying to duel him in a bush, which just really isn't a great idea. What we need to do is get rid of this JP and watch out for the Progetto. So our 7.4 is moving. 704 is moving in. So there we go. We got that guy lit. That'll be a good kill if we can get rid of him. There he goes. So that was important. And that gives us an advantage, a pretty good advantage at this point. All right, so there's 8.8. There's the Progetto. Oh, it just gets behind the rock. .8 is getting pushed by the Charioteer. And that's useful. He's right there. Shot into him. That got me lit. I knew it would. That's why I'm running away bravely. Just hoping to not get splash killed by the artillery. Charioteer's up behind him. Looks like he's now trying to turn around. And again, I don't realize that I only have one shell. Kind of a lucky shot, but I'll take it. He was charging in there to try to finish off that charioteer. And that's pretty much the end of it. All they've got is artillery. Speed this up. I don't remember if I actually get any shots on this guy or not. There he is. Nope, I do not get any shots on him. And down he goes. So 3,571, 6 kills. That's a stock prototype standard B. So it's not terrible. Clearly all my games did not go like that. It was a bit rough, I will admit 100% to that. But played carefully, that configuration is okay. I won't say it's great, but we'll say it's okay. Let's move on to the next example. Second example is basically all the way upgraded, checking on the gun stats, which we've looked at, but we're talking 330 pen now at 360 damage with the heat. Remember, it's heat now, not APCR. And we got APCR as a standard round with a pretty good pen of 268 and damage 360. I'm carrying quite a bit of heat on this. The standard round is actually quite good, and it's got 3 rounds. Now we'll take a quick look at the reload once we get shooting here on how much longer it is, and that's going to throw your timing off, which is a bad thing in a auto-loading tank like this and early on, so be careful when you switch to that big gun. Your timing as far as when you can poke, how long it's going to be for you to reload, things like that will be a little bit off. It'll take you a while to get used to it. So we'll come around here. It's not a very tall tank, so this spot's interesting. If you're fairly flat, there's not a whole lot of room right here, so we got this guy coming in. We'll just drop a shot on him. He's fairly inaccurate gun, so I take a chance and I get another one. Another one misses, and I'm able to just drop 3 on there real quick. So taking a bit of a chance. One of those probably should have hit me, so I got a bit lucky on the RNG. If I had that one to do again, I would have taken 2 and accepted that. But hey, nothing ventured, nothing gained, and we're down 2 already. A couple guys doing, I don't know what, over on the Pit of Despair down on the southeast. So we'll just change sides here. There's a T10 sitting there, not really paying attention to much. He's not looking at me, so I'll bounce. But it's an autoloader, so it's, oh, there we go. That I finally got punished for poking too many times, but got lucky because it was just a crit. Or a bounce. Not really sure what happened there. It must be a crit. Looks like it was a crit. So quite a few tanks there. Not very hard tanks. I really would like to get in there and start working on them. But they know I'm there, and they're probably staring at me. So I got to wait for them to get pushed and get busy. So let's go ahead, once I'm dark, come over here and see if I can't catch some of these guys out over here. And see that reload now. That was about 8 or 9 seconds for the second one, or for the third one right there. So much longer. Even the third one's about as long as the first one is. And he was just waiting, right? He was doing what I was talking about as far as just staring right there and being ready. He knew I was going to poke out, and he just nails me for 390. Gets the actual perfect 390 roll. And I'm just hoping he's bad enough that he wants to come back, but it doesn't look like he is. Now I'm thinking, oh, maybe that IS will poke out just enough. Maybe I can sneak one in on him. There we go. We get him down. Can I get back? He's coming for me. And that is classic passive right there. A classic passive. And you can take advantage of that. He's going to hide until he knows he has a shot that he can't be hurt on. So he's just going to hide. And once he saw that, he tried to come out, but he's not fast enough. I used his nature against him. Here we go, the T-28, getting a little side. Maybe I can get a shot on him. Is he going to push? Does he want it? How bad does he want it? He does want it. Oh, that's a miss. That's a bummer. Try to get that track. I got it, but did not get the stop, and then a bounce. So heavily armored tank, I get 1 in there, unable to track him. Now I'm going to get greedy. I'm switching to heat so I can punch people in the face. I'm thinking I might need that against the face of the T-28, and now we've got the Rev pushing in here, so he's getting aggressive, which is interesting. Unsure why he's doing that. Maybe he thinks he's going to catch me out. I'll just push into him, take him down. And here's that case where I used the first shell I had and how long that reload is. I'm not able to get that shot on that T-29. but there was a shot of opportunity to take out that rep, so that's why I did that. Things are looking okay. We're at 5 to 6 now. There's the T-28 again, poking around. One thing about moving back and forth on this map right here is if you start moving back to the other side before you go dark, they kind of know you're doing it. So you have to look at the timing on that. You may need to get to their side quick and just accept that they know you're coming. Maybe they're not paying attention. There's a lot of what ifs right there, but it is something to think about. I'm trying to track this guy just so we can not have him go up and over on the Emil. The T-10 goes and gets his piece of Mr. Emil, and I'm just trying to influence the T-10 right there. Make him less interested in pushing and killing the Emil, because clearly the Emil is reloading, otherwise he'd be coming up there and just pounding that poor guy with that great gun deflection. So we had the T-30. This is giving me time to reload. He just fired, so the T-30 is fired. That's giving me an opportunity. I don't really know how much is back here, so it's a bit of a dangerous move. So I know he's got a long read. I'm going to take both of these shots, and then I'm just going to have to back up. Unfortunately, I didn't have the third one ready by then, but I'll take those 2 shots. Now the Emil is going to come around. I think he gets rocked. I can't remember what happens to him. Oh, there we go. Never mind. He's going to actually kill this guy, I think. The 30 missed. That's why I'm now moving. And that's one of those skills you need to get in this game is timing shots, knowing when you can move forward. I accept that I'm going to use that first shell because I'd like to get the T-30 out. Now I'm just going to hide behind this rock for a bit. There's a guard way down there. Don't really want to go that way. That doesn't seem like the best way to go, especially if they got a bunch of campers up there. So you can use this lower move. The problem with this is you get guys like where their T-71 is and their other 2 tanks over are, the standard B over are, where their other 2 tanks are, the standard B and some others. I got a spotted right there doing that, unfortunately, and there's a Comet back there. So there's him. He's been sitting on that corner. Unknown exactly how he... That was bizarre, but I guess that bush in front of me was actually covering him up. Because there's no bush on his corner, so I'll just change direction. And another mistake, and this is something that happened to me last game, and happens to me a lot with this tank. I'm sitting on 1 shell, and I'm not reloading the others because I only have 1 heat shell. It would be really nice if it would allow you to just reload the AP CR shells in there, but that's probably a bridge too far. Just kill him off. Nope, I'm gonna pen or bounce. Looks like I got the curved part of his turret. And then, had I not buffooned my reload right there, I'd have had another shell immediately. Probably could have taken him down easily right there. He's not really paying attention, but he's behind some stuff, so I'll bounce again. And I take a hit. It's a little problematic. Now he's behind that cover. Got to be careful from behind there, not get shot. So I'm trying to find a little corner of this guy if I can just take him down. No, don't see him quite. The Emil's in bad shape as well. There's 1 TD I can't account for, so I could rush forward there. Oh, there we go. Maybe I'll just get that piece right there. There, finally made a mistake. Showed enough. And there's a low as well. Oh, look at this, the low. Nope, thought he was AFK, but he's actually fighting from the very back of the map. Nicely done, low. I'm unsure if that was the low or the TD that's back there. Probably the low. I did see the very top of his turret. So we'll come around this way. That's always something to think about. If you're looking at an approach and it doesn't look like it's going to work, instead of sitting there and waiting for someone else to make a mistake, if you have the opportunity to come in from a different direction, then do so. The more directions they have to deal with, the better off it is for your team. And this guy's just going to come up here and give me side shots. Fantastic. I'll take that. Take that. Oh, I can't track him? Down he goes. And it's the Saint Emil I was talking about. Dangerous tank, as long as it is not seen. Leo's headed up and over. Climb's okay. I mean, it's a decently mobile tank, but it's not going to win any races, really. The Emil eats the poor Leo. He's got a fairly long reload. Took me a while to get here, so he may be fairly quickly reloaded, but I've got the hit points to take that hit. He's going to shoot me if he gets it. That's all right. Doesn't matter. We'll just ram him here. Oh, no. We'll shoot him with a gun. Once he did hit me, I had to be careful about the ram. I didn't want him to kill me as well necessarily. So 5,420, 6 kills for a Top Gun. Pretty good tank. And I showed you some of the things about managing that autoloader. Made a couple mistakes in there that I mentioned as well. So it's a constant state with this type of tank, and really any autoloader, is managing the clip when you reload it. This one has the different twist of the rounds are always reloading. So it's a really interesting tank, and it can be highly effective, but based on all those kind of tricky use cases where you're dealing with the autoloader, it can also be very unforgiving at times. Let's move on to the third example. For the third example here on Tundra, middle tier, you're always going to be middle tier. You're a tier 9, so the worst case is middle tier. I guess you could be bottom tier on a 510. Maybe that's worst case for some people. Going to go take the hill over here on the east side. We're going to bounce the Sheridan. That was fantastic. And take a bunch of hits and then shoot my buddy because I'm tracked and he jumps in front of me. And holy cow, this has not been a good start. Not been a good start. There's the Sheridan. Ow, the Sheridan whacks me. Goodness gracious. So I'm down. I'm one shot to basically everything on the map, more or less, minus one of the scouts or two. And that is a great example, like I said in the last video, of how the tank not having a lot of armor, not being super fast, being just fast enough to get you into trouble. Starting to believe that that autoloader is the end-all be-all, and if you see anything, you're just going to clip it out because you're mighty like that. All those things can come together, and the next thing you know, you're at the very beginning of the game, and you have 312 hit points. So I got this T10. Now that's a bit dangerous. Had he just come around that corner, he might have been able to get me. He knows I'm up there. I was lit. I was hoping he would back up around that rock. And the other thing I'm not doing here is paying a whole lot of attention to what's going on behind me. What I did know is that we had a considerable investment to the hill. So if those guys can't win the hill over there, then it's not going to matter a whole lot what I do over here. So I'm just going to see if I can't keep this T10 and kill him. Nope, I can bounce him though. I can bounce him. Fortunately, I wasn't spotted. See if the Bulldog can get him. He's going to cover up, unfortunately, and get away. One of the other reasons I'm not down there on the ramp trying to help is I'm a one-shot. So right now I'm just trying to do a little bit of help. There we go. So we get him down. And now we'll come back around. So those guys have kind of forgotten about me. I haven't been poking and irritating them. You go to the same corner a lot. Sometimes they sort of figure that out. So I'm going to come around here. What I want to do is try to get that Centurion 7-1 if he's not looking like this. There we go. And he just fired. So I'm going to use that opportunity to do that and put 2 shots into him. I had the third one, but he just gets away. So, all right. Now we're in trouble, though. We don't have a whole lot of help up here. Somebody's hitting that Tiger 2 in the side. Tiger 2, for some inexplicable reason, wants to go forward. And, man, he gets a shot in on me. I get lucky and live. I'm down to 2 hit points. And I'm thinking, this is it. This is really it. These guys are just, they're all over us. Here they come. No. Oh, boy, what's he doing? That's a weird replay thing right there. Happens on occasion. Down he goes. Holy cow. Down he goes. Progetto is able to clip him out with the Bulldog helping. So now we've got a Tiger 2 and a Centurion on this corner. So they're kind of busy. Let's switch around, see if we can't find some other shots. Oh, there we go. It's Pantera not paying attention to me. Got a shot on him. He's still not really... Oh, he's fired. Yeah, he's really busy. So let's go ahead and see what we can do with the rest of the clip on this guy. Fantastic. Let's me put 3 into him. Back down. There is an artillery to worry about. That's why I'm going to cover up here. Actually, I thought I was going to cover up. Maybe I'm just dopey and I'm going to sit out in the open. Oh, that's right. I was worried about the Tiger 2. He's still there, and all my friends are gone, and they've got mediums pushing down the middle. So I'm expecting that Tiger 2 to show up and end my game at any moment. Really lucky there that the Pantera wasn't looking at me. Just kind of misplaying this thing all around. But here he comes. There, God. Oh, no. A ricochet. Oh, no. But he's got to reload. It's going to be a bit long. There we go. We got him. Holding on by the fingernails. 2 fingernails to be precise. There's the Pantera. Is he looking at me? He sure is. He sure is. He's looking over my way. He wants a piece of me. He's a one-shot to me. Let's see what he's doing. He's sort of looking, so I don't want to go up. He really wants to shoot me. He's being threatened from 2 directions, so that is hurting him a bit. There we go. We get him down. Somebody took a shot at me, it looks like. Got spotted. Scorpion G in the corner. The ELC, that's the other guy I expected at any moment for the ELC to show up and take me down. The other thing you'll notice is I was able to resist pushing 2. There just really wasn't any armor that was out there that I felt like I needed it for. Again, it doesn't have to always do with need. I got a funny message from the ELC driver saying good game, and I had to look him up to figure out who it was because I didn't know who it was at first. And I'm like, dude, sorry about this shot right here. Sometimes those happen, man. Sometimes shot like that happens. 4,545, holding on by the fingernails, but I wanted to show this one for 2 reasons. First is obviously middle tier in a 357, but the big one is that the ease at which how easy it is for you to overextend with this tank or to get yourself in trouble. And I didn't necessarily overextend, but I really got into the thick of things fast, but it's not so fast that I was there very, very early, right? So you're going to suffer some shots in this thing on positions like that, trying to get to it, and oftentimes you come in there with that, you know, big stick thinking, hey man, I'm gonna drop these 360 bombs on people, and I got 3 of them. I'm gonna run out and just dominate here. Next thing you know, you're at, you know, a one shot with 300 something hit points. And really, at the end of the day, pretty lucky I didn't get pushed hard by any of those guys down there. But hey, if the enemy's going to play passive, I'm going to take advantage of it. There you go. So 3rd example for that. We'll head on into the wrap-up.